And he was rude at one point. He was kind of he made some remark to Petula, which was uncalled for. Well, that got the fur up here. I got, okay, you can step on me because I can take it, but you don't step on our guest. You don't.
Television history sometimes tells a different story. On the surface, Carol Burnett and Harvey Korman looked like the perfect comedy team. Week after week on the Carol Burnett Show, they made millions of people laugh. Their timing was sharp, and their characters were unforgettable. The audience saw joy, teamwork, and pure talent. But then one very bad act from Harvey turned into a big problem. Unable to stand his attitude, Carol Burnett fired Harvey Korman completely from the show. She later exposed the truth behind it, shocking many people who thought they knew the full story. What really happened between two of the biggest stars in classic television? And why did Carol Burnett finally decide she had no other choice? Join us as we delve into the details of this creative clash. Carol Burnett's Big Leap. Carol Burnett built a public image that seemed almost impossible to damage. Many people across the United States saw her as a kind person in comedy, someone who carried warmth both on screen and in daily life. She began her story far from television fame. Carol was born in San Antonio, Texas, where she spent her early childhood before her family relocated to California. They settled close to Hollywood Boulevard, but the area was far from glamorous. She lived in a small boarding house with her grandmother and her younger half-sister Chrissy. Money was limited, and daily life required careful planning and sacrifice. As a young child, Carol showed a strong imagination. In second grade, she created an imaginary twin sister named Karen, inspired by the sweet image of Shirley Temple. She went to great effort to make others believe this twin was real. She switched clothes quickly, ran in and out through different doors, and used the fire escape to confuse people in the boarding house. The game demanded energy and focus, and eventually, she grew tired of keeping up the act. Slowly, the invented sister disappeared from her stories. Even at that age, she displayed a talent for performance and quick movement that later shaped her comedy style. When she was 9 years old, she taught herself how to perform the well-known Tarzan yell. She practiced it loudly and carefully, learning how to control her voice. Years later, she understood that this early habit worked like a vocal exercise that helped her develop power and range. The yell later became a favorite part of her public appearances. Her grandmother had musical training and knew how to play the piano, even though they did not own one. Her mother played the ukulele. The family often gathered around the kitchen table to sing popular songs together in harmony, creating small moments of joy inside a difficult environment. Trips to the movies played a major role in shaping her creative mind. Her grandmother frequently took her and her sister to local theaters. They sometimes carried home small items like toilet paper from the cinema because resources were tight. However, the films she watched left a deep mark on her imagination. Scenes, costumes, and dramatic gestures stayed with her for years. Many of these early influences later appeared in sketches on The Carol Burnett Show. The exaggerated characters and playful storytelling in her later work reflected the old Hollywood movies she absorbed as a child, sitting in dark theaters. As a teenager and young adult, she worked to support herself. She became an usherette at the Warner Brothers Theater, now known as the Hollywood Pacific Theater. One day, the theater screened the film Strangers on a Train, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Carol had already seen the movie and understood its ending. When a couple arrived near the final minutes of a showing, she tried to protect their experience by suggesting they wait for the next screening. The manager misunderstood the situation and dismissed her immediately. He removed the decorative shoulder pieces from her uniform on the spot. After finishing her studies at Hollywood High School in 1951, she received unexpected financial help. An anonymous envelope arrived with $50 to cover 1 year of tuition at University of California, Los Angeles. She first planned to study journalism, believing writing offered stability. During her first year, she shifted her focus toward theater arts and English, hoping to become a playwright. The program required an acting course before full entry. Although she did not feel fully prepared for performance, she enrolled because it was necessary for her goal. During her first appearance on stage at the university, something changed inside her. Carol decided to stretch out her words and deliver her lines in a playful and unusual way. The audience reacted with laughter and strong approval. That reaction filled a space in her life that had often felt heavy and lonely. She had grown up shy and withdrawn, but the response from the crowd gave her new energy. The experience encouraged her to continue performing in university productions. Gradually, professors and classmates began to notice her natural sense of timing, musical skill, and physical comedy. But her mother struggled to accept this new direction. She preferred that her daughter pursue writing, which seemed more dependable. As a child, Carol had been corrected for making funny faces or crossing her eyes. The idea of performing on stage had never seemed realistic during those early years. Still, during her junior year in 1954, an important opportunity appeared. A professor invited her and other students to perform at a private party instead of completing a canceled final exam. After the performance, a wealthy couple approached her, while she quietly gathered cookies to take home to her grandmother. The man learned about her dream of moving to New York to try musical comedy and discovered she lacked the funds for such a move. He had earned his wealth in the shipbuilding industry in La Jolla, California. So he offered her and her boyfriend, Don Soroyan, an interest-free loan of $1,000 each, equal to nearly $12,000 in today's value. The agreement was repayment within 5 years, the lender's anonymity, and a promise to help others if success arrived. Carol accepted the offer. She and Soroyan left college and traveled to New York City. During her first year there, she worked as a hat check girl while auditioning for roles. That was how she began the long path toward recognition, until luck finally found her. The unexpected drama. The Carol Burnett Show came to life in September 1967 after years of planning and negotiation with CBS. The program entered television at a time when variety shows depended on strong hosts and tight structure. From its first season, the series blended musical performances, short comedy sketches, and direct interaction with the studio audience. The format felt warm and welcoming, like a weekly visit with familiar faces. Viewers tuned in not only for jokes, but for the easy rhythm between cast members who appeared comfortable working side by side with each other. At the center stood Carol Burnett, who carried more than the title role. She guided the tone of each episode, shifting smoothly between heartfelt musical numbers and broad physical comedy. She introduced sketches, spoke with audience members during the opening question segment, and helped shape the pacing of the hour. Her ability to move from sincerity to playful exaggeration allowed the show to explore many styles without losing balance. Even with her strong presence, the program depended heavily on its ensemble. Harvey Korman served as a major pillar of the cast. His training in theater and television gave structure to many of the show's most remembered sketches. He often played authority figures, dramatic leads in film parodies, or tightly wound characters who reacted to chaos around them. His precise timing created contrast with broader performers. Alongside him stood Vicki Lawrence and Lyle Waggoner. Each brought a distinct presence that strengthened recurring characters and ongoing comedic bits. Their shared experience built trust that allowed complex sketches to unfold smoothly. As seasons passed, the lineup shifted. Waggoner left in 1974, opening space for new energy. Tim Conway, who had first appeared as a guest, gradually became central to the series. His improvisational style and unpredictable delivery added a different flavor to the established rhythm. The transition succeeded because the cast already operated like a practiced team. Long rehearsal hours and professional discipline supported the relaxed feeling that audiences saw on screen. Behind the laughter stood careful preparation. Variety television required exact timing. Musical cues, costume changes, lighting adjustments, and camera movements had to align precisely. A shift in mood during rehearsal could influence the final taping. If tension entered the studio, it could affect performers, guest stars, and crew members responsible for sound and staging. The smooth surface of each broadcast depended on emotional steadiness backstage. The series had developed a reputation for warmth. which made any disruption stand out sharply. During the 7th season, one rehearsal week broke from that pattern. The guest lineup included Petula Clark and Conway, who at that time had not yet become a full, regular cast member. Both guests were known in the industry for professionalism and friendly cooperation. Clark had built an international music career with polished stage presence, while Conway had already shown skill in television comedy. Their involvement promised an easy and enjoyable taping schedule. On the morning set aside to pre-record a musical number, Korman appeared in costume dressed in an outfit inspired by Elvis Presley. The wardrobe choice fit the show's style of parody and musical tribute. However, his mood contrasted sharply with the playful costume. Reports from that day described visible irritation during run-throughs. Instead of the usual light exchange between cast members, there was stiffness in his reactions. His demeanor shifted the atmosphere inside the soundstage. During rehearsal, tension became more noticeable. Interaction that normally flowed with easy humor felt strained. At one point, a remark directed toward Clark crossed into rudeness. In a production built on collaboration, such behavior disrupted the creative balance. Burnett, who often protected the show's tone, reacted strongly to the change. She understood that guests stepped into an established environment and relied on the cast to create safety for filming. Any form of hostility risked undermining that trust. The studio functioned like a small community. Writers refined scripts, directors adjusted blocking, and performers depended on each other for cues. A harsh comment or visible anger could ripple outward, affecting timing and confidence. Guest performers, unfamiliar with the daily rhythm, needed reassurance that the space welcomed them. When friction surfaced, it threatened more than personal feelings. It placed the entire production schedule under pressure, especially during a week that required musical staging and tight coordination. However, Clark and Conway continued to handle their roles professionally, despite the tension. The rehearsal moved forward, but the emotional shift remained clear. The contrast between Korman's scowling expression and the bright parody costume created a strange visual scene. Crew members who worked regularly with the cast noticed the difference from typical rehearsals. The moment highlighted how delicate ensemble chemistry could be, even after years of shared success. The strength of the series rested on mutual respect. Film parodies, recurring characters, and musical finales demanded vulnerability from every participant. Guest stars joined that framework with limited rehearsal time. Their willingness to participate depended on confidence that the environment supported creative risk. A negative interaction could reduce spontaneity and weaken a sketch before cameras began recording. The incident during that rehearsal week revealed how quickly mood could influence performance. Unfortunately, Burnett wasn't having any of it. Boundaries and balance. During the long run of the Carol Burnett Show, leadership rarely required open conflict. The set usually operated with warmth and shared timing. However, during that tense rehearsal week in the 7th season, Carol Burnett reached a turning point. She understood that protecting the atmosphere of the program meant stepping into a firmer role. She had built her reputation on kindness and cooperation. Yet the disruption caused by Harvey Korman forced her to act with authority rather than patience. Instead of avoiding the issue, she decided to confront it directly. The show carried her name, and with that came responsibility for every rehearsal, guest appearance, and crew interaction. After the night's show, she walked to Korman's dressing room with a mix of concern and determination. She needed to understand the source of his anger, but she also needed to make clear that the tension could not continue. Running a weekly network program required emotional steadiness, especially when guest performers and technical staff depended on stability. Inside the dressing room, the conversation did not turn out to be calm. Korman reacted defensively and resisted her involvement. He suggested that his mood was not her concern. Yet Burnett reminded him that anything affecting the set, the invited guests, and the working climate fell under her responsibility. The exchange intensified quickly. What began as an attempt to check on a colleague shifted into a serious disagreement about conduct and control. The discussion no longer centered on feelings but on professional standards. As the argument grew sharper, Korman indicated that he would rather leave than adjust his behavior. The tension reached a breaking point when he expressed willingness to finish the evening's performance and then never return. Burnett later described how he physically moved her backward into the hallway and closed the dressing room door. That action transformed a private dispute into a visible divide during a busy workday. Crew members moved through the corridor, aware that something serious was going on. Burnett chose not to let the moment slide without consequences. She contacted Korman's agent and explained that his involvement with the program would end after that night's taping. The decision shifted the situation from creative disagreement to employment dispute. In a production built on teamwork, boundaries had to remain clear. Guests such as Petula Clark and Tim Conway had stepped into the environment expecting professionalism. Allowing rudeness to continue would risk damaging trust beyond a single rehearsal. The performance that evening moved forward as scheduled. Variety television demanded that personal strains stay behind the curtain. Musical cues, costume changes, and scripted sketches proceeded under bright lights. Yet Burnett felt the weight of the earlier confrontation throughout the taping. The strain influenced her concentration and disrupted the easy chemistry that usually defined the ensemble. She recognized that working under such pressure week after week would weaken the foundation of the series. After the show concluded, she returned to Korman's dressing room to inform him that his agent had been contacted. The message carried a clear implication. Professional behavior mattered more than individual pride. At that stage, many would assume the partnership had ended permanently. However, the situation took an unexpected turn. Korman asked what steps he could take to repair the damage. That shift from resistance to negotiation opened a narrow path forward. Burnett, on the other hand, responded with precise conditions rather than emotional appeals. She required consistent cheerfulness during the following week, not a brief show of improvement. The expectation covered rehearsals, hallway interactions, and moments with guest performers. She insisted that no harsh comments or dismissive gestures be directed at visitors or crew members. The standards focused on conduct rather than personality. She also emphasized that personal moods belonged outside the workplace. To reinforce the point, she painted a vivid image of the energy she expected to see. She wanted visible lightness in the corridors and dressing areas. The idea carried humor, but also seriousness. In a studio that thrived on timing and trust, visible positivity strengthened collaboration. Korman agreed to these terms. They sealed the understanding with a handshake, transforming a near dismissal into a structured second chance. The following week offered immediate proof of his effort. Burnett later described stepping into the hallway near the elevator and seeing Korman emerge with cheer. He moved with playful exaggeration, skipping along the corridor as if acting out a comic role. The display signaled compliance with the agreement and also diffused lingering tension among crew members who had witnessed the earlier conflict. By Friday, the atmosphere had shifted enough for a small inside joke to appear, a moment that reflected relief as much as humor. What could have ended as a permanent fracture instead became an example of enforced accountability. The incident revealed how leadership functioned behind the laughter of a long-running television institution. A show that appeared effortless on screen relied on firm standards backstage, and Burnett's willingness to impose boundaries preserved stability for performers and staff alike. But then Harvey did something that the entire crew would never forget. Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky. When the next Monday arrived at the Carol Burnett Show, the air inside the studio felt uncertain. The argument between Carol Burnett and Harvey Korman had ended with strict rules and a handshake. He had promised to change his attitude. She had made it clear that respect was required. Now everyone waited to see what would really happen. The cast walked in early. The crew checked lights and cameras. People spoke in low voices, wondering what kind of mood would step off the elevator. When the elevator doors finally opened on the studio floor, Harvey came out wearing a wide smile. He did not move slowly or look embarrassed. Instead, he stepped forward with bright energy. He began to skip down the hallway. He swung his arms in big circles. He even started to whistle loudly as he made his way toward Carol's office. It looked dramatic and almost silly. The picture felt so large that it seemed like a planned sketch, not real life. That strong entrance changed everything in seconds. The tight feeling from the week before began to melt away. People stopped what they were doing and stared. Then laughter broke out in the hallway. Carol saw him coming and bent over laughing. The sound of her laughter echoed against the studio walls. His playful skipping showed that he understood how serious her warning had been. It also showed that he was willing to fix the damage. On that set, humor connected everyone. By acting in such an over-the-top way, he used comedy to repair trust. The show depended on teamwork. Writers needed actors to deliver lines with the right timing. Musicians needed cues to start songs at the correct moment. Camera operators had to follow quick movements across the stage. A tense mood could ruin that balance. Meanwhile, Harvey's exaggerated cheer helped the set breathe again. It told everyone that the fight was not going to drag on for weeks, giving the team permission to relax. The change did not stop in the hallway. Later, crew members shared another story. After taping, many staff gathered at a nearby bar. It was a simple place where they talked about the day's work. That evening, Harvey climbed onto the bar so everyone could see him. He told the story of the argument. He admitted that Carol had drawn a clear line. He raised a drink in her honor. The crew cheered. By doing this in public, he showed that he accepted her leadership. Carol decided to turn the lesson into something people would not forget. She ordered a small plaque and placed it on his dressing room door. The sign called him Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky. It sounded light and funny, but it carried meaning. It reminded him that good behavior was not optional. Everyone who walked past that door could see it. The plaque became a symbol on the set. It mixed humor with a clear rule. Years later, Carol spoke about that week during interviews about her career. She explained that she did not enjoy confrontation. Many people in the industry knew her as kind and warm. When she reached the point of anger, it meant the situation was serious. Harvey later shared his own memories in interviews about her life and work. He said that seeing her truly upset surprised him. He realized that he had gone too far. Harvey strikes out. After the storm passed on the set of The Carol Burnett Show, the work did not slow down. The cameras still rolled. The writers still met every week, the costumes were still fitted, and the music was still rehearsed. What changed was the air between the people. The hard moment between Carol Burnett and Harvey Korman had forced everyone to see how fragile a comedy set could be. Laughter depended on trust. Timing depended on respect. Once that lesson settled in, the team moved forward with clearer understanding. The show continued to grow through the 1970s. Each week, mixed musical numbers, film spoofs, and character sketches that audiences waited for. Harvey remained one of the strongest parts of the cast. He often played dramatic roles in parodies, acting serious, while chaos unfolded around him. His sharp delivery balanced perfectly with the wild improvisation of Tim Conway. Scenes between them often stretched longer than planned because the audience laughed so hard. Vicki Lawrence also continued building her own famous characters, adding strength to the ensemble. Behind the scenes, the structure stayed tight. Rehearsals were long. Lines were practiced again and again. Even though the final show looked easy, it took strong discipline. The earlier conflict had made one fact very clear. Personal moods could not control a workplace that involved hundreds of moving parts. The crew, guest stars, and musicians depended on steady behavior from the main cast. The balance between humor and order kept the machine running. By the late 1970s, Harvey began thinking about the next step in his career. After more than a decade on the variety show, he wanted to see if he could lead a series on his own. In 1978, near the end of the original run, he left to launch The Harvey Korman Show on ABC. The project placed him at the center. It was built as a sitcom designed around his talents, giving him more control and screen time than he had as part of an ensemble. The shift from team player to main star proved challenging. The new series struggled with format changes and network decisions. Scheduling shifts made it hard for viewers to find the program. Critics noted that while Harvey had strong comic skill, the structure of a weekly sitcom did not highlight his strengths the way sketch comedy had. On the variety show, he had been able to change characters each week, moving from drama parody to musical comedy with ease. The new format limited that flexibility. Ratings stayed low. After only a short run, the network canceled the show. The ending came quickly. The experience showed how difficult it could be to build a new hit, even for someone already known to millions. Leading a series required not only talent, but also the right writing, timing, and network support. The cancellation marked a setback, but it did not erase his reputation. After the series ended, Harvey did not disappear. He returned to performing in other ways. He teamed up again with Tim Conway for live tours across the country. Their stage shows drew large crowds who remembered their famous sketches. Without television cameras, they had freedom to stretch scenes and react directly to the audience. Those tours lasted for years and kept his connection to fans strong. Harvey also continued acting in films. He worked with Mel Brooks in movies such as Blazing Saddles and High Anxiety. These roles allowed him to explore different styles of comedy. On film sets, he showed the same control and timing that had made him successful on television. The range of his work proved that one canceled show did not define his career. Meanwhile, The Carol Burnett Show finished its historic run in 1978 after 11 seasons. The program earned multiple Emmy Awards and left a lasting mark on American television. Carol continued acting in later years, appearing in both comedy and drama. She received major honors, including the Presidential Medal of Freedom, recognizing her influence on entertainment. Her name became linked with classic television history. The bond between Carol and Harvey remained steady, long after the tense week that once threatened their partnership. In 1982, he joined Carol Burnett and Vicki Lawrence again in the television film Eunice, returning as Ed Higgins from The Family sketches on The Carol Burnett Show. He later carried the same role into the spin-off series Mama's Family. During the show's first 2 seasons on NBC, he introduced every episode as the made-up host Alistair Quince, and also directed 31 episodes of the series. Years passed, but the image of Harvey skipping down the hallway stayed alive in backstage memory. It showed how quickly things could break and how quickly they could heal when people accepted responsibility. The failed series did not erase his contributions. The long run of the variety show did not erase his ambition. Together, those chapters formed a complete picture of a performer who faced both success and setback, and who continued working through each change in the spotlight. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen. The choice she gave him had been simple. He could leave the program if he did not want to follow the standards. If he stayed, he had to show respect and bring a better mood to work. Coming from someone known for gentleness, that message carried strong force. It showed that the problem had grown beyond a small disagreement. It had become something that could damage the entire show. Carol later explained that sharp words aimed at her were not the real issue. She could handle personal tension. What crossed the line was disrespect toward a guest. Guest stars stepped into the show's world trusting the cast to treat them kindly. If a guest felt uncomfortable, the sketch could fall apart before cameras even started rolling. Protecting that safe space was part of her responsibility as the show's leader. The audience watching at home never knew about the conflict. No dramatic firing happened on stage. The argument stayed behind closed doors. The warning was delivered quickly, and the correction came just as fast. Because of that speed, the series kept moving forward without public trouble. Harvey remained on the program for several more seasons. He continued to work closely with performers such as Vicki Lawrence and Tim Conway. The story later became part of backstage history. Crew members remembered the sight of him skipping down the hall and whistling loudly. That image showed how firm rules and laughter could exist at the same time. Behind the bright costumes, musical numbers, and funny sketches stood clear limits about behavior. Those limits helped protect the team and kept the creative energy strong. The hallway moment with the elevator doors opening remained a clear picture of how leadership, humor, and accountability worked together on one of television's most loved programs. However, that wasn't the end of it.